recent interview with Golf Week, the 1973 Open champion Tom Weiskopf shared his opinion on four-time major winner Rory McIlroy's future prospects in golf's biggest events after coming up short at the Masters once again. This is what Tom said, quote, "I think golf is something just for Rory to do. I don't think he'll win much more than the four he's got, or maybe five, because I don't see that determination and will to be the best. I think it is there in Dustin Johnson. I think he finally figured it out, and this could propel him to win all four in 1 year. I don't see any frustration from Rory. Life is good, and it should be. He's a multi-millionaire and has a kid now, but I don't see the Tiger attitude. It's like he's satisfied all the time." He continued to say the guy is not a good putter. He can hit some putts so offline with the wrong speed. He's technically not a good putter, but one of the purest swings you'd ever want to watch play in the game. Technically, he's superior to Dustin Johnson, but Dustin has the confidence to do it every time. I know Rory works out, but I bet if you watch them both work out, Rory would be a lot of laughs and giggles, and Dustin would be balls to the wall and forcing a little bit more on himself, and that's what he's done, end quote. So, in response to Weiskopf's remarks, Rory had this to say to Golf Week, quote, "I've never met Tom Weiskopf in my life. He's never met me, so he's obviously making a statement based on what he sees from the outside, but I don't think that's a fair assessment," McIlroy said. "I've shown throughout my career that I care, that I want to win, that I want to be the best, and I've been the best. It's not as if I'm out there in the clouds and not thinking about it. I try my heart out on every single shot, every single tournament that I play. I maybe deal better with disappointment than I used to. I saw the interview where he said he sees no frustration. Like, I don't think that's a bad thing. I mean, look at the Zozo. I'm breaking clubs, so there's a bit of frustration there. Obviously, he didn't watch that round of golf," end quote. So, yeah, there's a lot to unpack here. So for more on this story, let's welcome back Damon Hack.
All right, LT, Rory McIlroy, Robert, winless for more than a year, majorless for more than 6. Is Tom Weiskopf right?
No, I don't think he is. There was a time I kind of thought that he was right, and I never faulted Rory if he were to kind of rest on his laurels. He had done so much at that point, and I thought maybe that was the case, but it wasn't that long ago he was the Players' Champion, and he was in the last group so many times, and he won so much, and he was top 10ing every single week, and he was clearly the best in the world. And after the COVID layoff, he hasn't come back as strong as he was before, but that doesn't mean that his determination isn't there. Now, that being said, I've got no problem with what Tom Weiskopf said. I think that assessing from the outside, using what information you have and doing the best you can with it, that's my job, that's Paige's job, and it used to be Tom's job, and he was being asked in an interview. That's fine, as long as he can own being wrong.
Right.
Maybe he's very possibly wrong. Obviously, if you believe Rory, who would know more than Weiskopf, then Tom's wrong, and that's fine. That's fine. So I like it. I don't think the controversy's there, what we kind of think might be there, but it's still an interesting statement from Weiskopf.
I feel like it's a reasonable statement. Rory appears to be one of the more balanced players on tour, and you don't often find highly successful, balanced, well-rounded people, or that are at the top of their industry. Period. There's a lot of sacrifice that goes into being great and being incredible at what you do. And because of that sacrifice, oftentimes you don't see this kind of balanced lifestyle that we're seeing from Rory. So it's a reasonable assessment to make. However, I believe it's almost impossible to stay on tour and compete week in and week out if you don't have that internal motivation, if you don't have that drive, if you don't have the will to compete and to win, because it is such a draining lifestyle, emotionally, mentally, physically, and on your family and relationships that you have. So for that reason, I think he's wrong, but I think it's a reasonable statement to make.
Sure.
I think it's a reasonable statement in that Tom Weiskopf would know. Back in 2008, he told Golf Digest, listen, the most persistent feelings I have about my career are remorse and guilt. I wasted the talent that God gave me. I didn't utilize it to its full potential. That's not saying that Rory is not doing that, but I think Tom Weiskopf, who was this stud coming out of Ohio State in the wake of Jack Nicklaus and was overwhelmed by that, and who spent too much time, he would admit, that drinking got in the way, and the final 4 holes of a golf tournament would get in the way when he could see the steeliness of Jack Nicklaus and he would feel himself shudder. So I think in some ways, Tom Weiskopf is trying to be instructive for Rory, to say, leave no stone unturned. Don't leave any doubt that you're not focused 100% eye on the ball. And I think Rory, to his credit, has shown this vulnerability and honesty in saying that he hasn't always been completely focused. Maybe not feeling it this week was one of his statements when the PGA Tour returned from COVID, Robert. So I guess my question is, if this is out there in the ether, and Weiskopf's not the first person to say it, what can Rory do to change the narrative?
Go ahead.
That's a great point. Does Weiskopf watch Rory and see himself like he's watching a mirror? Here's a guy that was very successful, but an underachiever, no doubt about it. And a guy that was supposed to be challenging Nicklaus, yet Nicklaus had something deep down that Tom Weiskopf didn't. And he sees DJ with that something deep down right now that maybe Rory is lacking. We're all made up of different qualities and different things, and it's hard to knock Rory's career. The statement that, Tom saw himself or sees himself when he looks back and says, I wasted a talent. I don't know that Rory's going to look back on his career when he's 60, 70 years old and say, boy, I wasted or I didn't do enough, because I'm pretty sure that I've seen Rory work. I think he works pretty hard.
And the other thing is, the number of stones to be left unturned is exponentially greater today than it was in years past, just based on technology, based on advancement in training, based on all of these other mental and physical tools. So it is, again, reasonable that players would have shorter spans at the very top of their game, just based on exhaustion of trying to continue to get better and this constant desire to try to improve. So I think for Rory, I agree with you, Robert. When he looks back, he's not going to have the same sentiment, even if Weiskopf is right in that now at this point in his career, he's not as singly focused as he once was.
Well, in Weiskopf's day, there was a lot more off time. One, there are less tournaments, and two, you're right, there was golf time, and then when you set the clubs in your trunk, you ate cheeseburgers, you drank beer. Tom obviously had a bit of a drinking problem. He was even admitted when he was playing. Working out was bad for you back then. You don't do that. That's ridiculous. So you're right. There's a lot more downtime to not think about it, as opposed to now where any waking hour kind of has to be given into, from everything you put in your mouth to every...
When you sleep, when you wake up.
Everything. Those bands on your arm show everything. So you're trying to take 24 hours of golf, or you can't be competitive the way you used to be. So it's kind of apples and oranges, but maybe, just maybe, Rory can read this, and after he calms down a little bit, maybe learn a little something. Who knows?
I think it's instructive, and even with his greatness, this does seem to be Rory's reality, at least until he wins major championship number 5.